So I became a dad. You can probably tell from the title of this video, but just about half a year ago, I became a father. What was this experience like? What are my takeaways? What have I learned? It's all here in this video. If you guys are interested, stick around. I think it'll be useful for those who are contemplating about having kids at some point in their future. And I want to make a video that I would learn from prior to becoming a dad. So without further introductions, let's just get straight into it. I'll just set the stage and provide a little bit of context as to why I decided to have this child. And yes, it was a planned pregnancy. It was not an accident baby. Okay, so ever since I was a child, I always knew I wanted a family. I always knew I wanted a kid at some point. And honestly, looking back, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was my Christian upbringing, or maybe it was just a simple biological urge to reproduce and replicate. Depends on how you want to look at it. Probably a mixture of both. But, growing up, I feel like my family was pretty stable, and I didn't have a negative experience or negative reason as to why I wouldn't want to start a family. And so after getting married, we always leaned in that direction of, hey, we're getting married to start a family. And, we had our fun while dating. We dated for about 4 years. We went out a lot, hung out with friends, and we really had a blast in our 20s, both me and my wife. And after getting married for the last couple of years, we also took some time to travel the world and really bond and kind of build our marriage and deepen our relationship. And we got to this point where, it was like, what's next? Well, age-wise, we're getting to a point where it just makes sense to start a family. I recently turned 31. Obviously, there's a biological clock. And I understand that the way I'm kind of laying out my life almost sounds like the beaten path, NPC behavior, where you go to school, you get married, you have a child, you're following the beaten path. But, there are seasons in life, and it's important to recognize the seasons. And I recognize that, hey, this season, if we are serious about starting a family, it is time, right? There's biological clock for both men and women, especially when it comes to your energy levels. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. They just think about fertility as a prerequisite for pregnancy, but your energy levels, man, you don't want to be 40-year-old, changing diapers and going to work without getting any sleep. It's definitely a young man's game. So with that being said, what was the pregnancy and delivery like? Well, we were blessed to have a smooth pregnancy. My wife exercised throughout, ran, stayed healthy. The delivery was a little bit more complex, but it was good. We ended up having a healthy child, and we're really stoked. And just to linger on the moment of birth itself, man, it's such a crazy experience. The moment you hear your baby cry for the first time, that dopamine hit is insane. I mean, think of a cold plunge or something of that nature, where you just feel something wake up within you, something deeply primal. I get goosebumps just talking about it right now. When we first heard that cry, one of the delivery nurses armed me with a napkin, and she said, be ready to wipe your wife's tears. And sure enough, I just see my wife tearing up and just tears running down her cheeks, and started wiping them. And there's this almost hormonal response where I was overwhelmed with emotion as well, and my eyes started watering. And keep in mind, I'm not an emotional guy. I grew up in Eastern Europe, where growing up I always heard real men don't cry, and I've learned how to suppress my emotions through the years. But it was really hard to hold back in that moment when you understand at a very deep primal level that, hey, my baby was just born, and that cry, that voice, is just permeates your whole being. So I don't want to romanticize that experience too much, but it's definitely something that I'll remember forever. And just, I remember putting my kid into the car seat and driving home so carefully, being a truly defensive driver on the way home. And I was like, man, I got this precious cargo. I can't get into an accident. I got to be extra vigilant, extra careful. And, you get home and then the dopamine wears off. The reality sets in. Hey, this baby is now here and you're 100% responsible for its survival. Oh, and also it's completely useless when it comes to taking care of itself. So it fully depends on you for survival. Once that sets in, you realize, wow, that's a huge responsibility. You got to keep this baby alive. And you start learning, and you start learning quick. The second thing that kicks in is sleep deprivation, right? You recognize that you are not getting the same sleep you used to. And what makes things worse is me and my wife are both avid Andrew Huberman listeners. So we consumed hours of podcasts about the benefits and cognitive health and longevity benefits of quality sleep. And we really dialed in our sleep over the last year or so. And so to go from that, perfectly set circadian rhythm to super fragmented, inconsistent sleep patterns where you're constantly being interrupted, constantly being woken up, it was hard. Honestly, you wake up and you feel like you were just hit by a train, but you still have to go to work, you still have to perform, you still have to take care of business. And so it was definitely a big readjustment and on that front. So yeah, I mean, you are not getting any REM sleep. Just forget about it, at least for the first half a year or so. But when you wake up and you take a look at your baby, it just woke you up and it's cooing or trying to crawl or something like that. Yes, there's that moment of like, wow, I didn't get enough sleep. But then you start looking at the baby, start looking at its eyes and its smile, and you realize it's all worth it, right? When the baby smiles at you, it's truly something special, because a baby's smile is unlike anything else. Because as adults, there's courtesy smiles. People smile at you at the counter when you buy groceries. But a baby, it has an undeveloped prefrontal cortex and it can't lie to you. So all the emotions that you're getting out of your kid, they're legit. They're legitimate emotions, whether it's pure rage or happiness. There's no doubt in your mind that the kid is being real with you. And so when you come home after a long day at work and you open that door and you see that little head turn towards you and the big smile appear, it's real. You know that the baby is legitimately happy to see you, and that just warms up your heart. And moments like this, they just make all of it worth it. The sleepless nights, the readjustments to your schedule, because having a baby, it is a pivotal moment. It's an inflection point in your life where things will never be the same. Your free time is not going to be there. Your kind of selfish pursuits or your wants are now taking second priority over what your child wants, over what your son wants. And honestly, it's the biggest ego death experience I can think of. I've never taken psychedelics, but I imagine that's something similar where you just feel like, hey, I'm not that important. What is important is I'm responsible for this life, and I want to be a good parent, and I want to do my best, and it automatically gives you purpose. So I don't know if you're lacking with purpose, whether having a kid is the silver bullet solution, but it definitely brings more fulfillment and purpose to your life. Like anything that's difficult, right? Think of the last time you experienced true happiness. It was probably after you've accomplished something difficult, something worthwhile, whether it was a big bet that paid off, whether it was a huge amount of effort you put into getting an education, and you're finally standing on the stage with your diploma. That feeling of accomplishment, of persevering through difficulty and winning, that's what you get, right? Because having a baby will probably be the most difficult thing you've ever done. Like, I do difficult things at work. I'm a senior engineer. I have a lot of responsibility, but honestly, it all pales in comparison to having a baby. So what happens is you also get this identity shift, because up to that point, you're just, a guy, or maybe a married man, a husband, but now you have to get into the framing of, or the identity of, a father, right? So now I'm the dad. So all of your decisions and things and plans have to go through that filter or that prism of, well, you're a father. Are you really going to do this? Or, your risk tolerance, and definitely, definitely something that will also take a hit, because every decision needs to go through the prism of what is the long-term impact of this decision? Can I tolerate the risks associated with it? And how will it impact my child and his future, right? And so it's really a profound shift that happens. It doesn't happen overnight, but I'm definitely noticing things that are changing about me. And I want to say they're for the better. Obviously, risk aversion is not necessarily a positive trait, depending on the context. I've also noticed my wife change quite a bit from the hormonal perspective, from her behavioral things. Certain emotions and motherly instincts definitely came out that I've never even observed before. And it's beautiful. I think she changed for the better. And I think I'm really proud of the mother she's becoming. And so, again, it's really a profound, transformative experience that you shouldn't take lightly. Again, it comes with a lot of responsibility. It comes with a lot of sleepless nights. It comes with a lot of caveats. But what I would suggest is maybe try to develop calluses of taking responsibility prior to having a kid. So get used to being responsible for something, whether it's being responsible for something or someone in your community, or maybe taking on a mortgage or taking on responsibility at work. Be prepared to have a perspective of a person who takes on responsibility for the long term. And go make a baby, man. It's going to change you for the better. It's going to be a transformative experience. It's going to be pivotal. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. Looking back, I should have taken this decision more seriously prior to having a kid, but I have zero regrets, and I'm really excited for the future, really hopeful for my son. And I'm going to keep you guys up to date with any changes that will take place. But yeah, go make a baby.